Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, War Secretary Pete Hegseth says the U.S. is increasing its focus on defending its own interests. He accuses previous administrations that were in office after the Cold War of not putting America first in their policies. Israel's prime minister and Germany's chancellor reaffirming their security partnership in a press conference today. Meanwhile, residents in Bethlehem attended a Christmas tree lighting ceremony for the first time since the Israel-Hamas war began. The White House has unveiled its new national security strategy. An expert joins us to unpack what the document means for China, Taiwan, and Europe. We all have our little daily routines and preferences, but when do they cross into OCD territory? A clinical psychologist breaks down the line between quirks and a true anxiety disorder. President Trump rolling back Biden-era fuel efficiency standards. A car expert joins us to unpack what this means for the car industry and if cars will become cheaper. And this weekend, the road to the Winter Olympics has begun. Details on how more than 10,000 torchbearers are carrying the flame across Italy.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Tiffany Meyer. War Secretary Pete Hegseth is praising the Trump administration's effort to put America first in its policies. Hegseth spoke at the annual Reagan National Defense Forum, highlighting similarities between President Trump and former President Reagan. According to Hegseth, multiple administrations after the Cold War did not put America first in their policies. NTD's Arian Ponstar has the highlights.
Their America Last bipartisan consensus is done. It is finished. Under President Trump's leadership, after decades of disastrous decisions by this nation's self-appointed so-called foreign policy elite, we're once again putting American interests first.
Secretary of War Pete Hegseth highlighting the Trump administration's policies in putting America first. On Friday, President Trump unveiled a national security blueprint in which he describes China as a central threat to the U.S. Hegseth touched on the topic as well. He says Washington isn't aiming to overpower China, but rather defending its own interest.
It's our job to make sure Beijing sees unquestionable U.S. military strength that, if necessary, can back up our national interests. Even as we make clear our peaceful intentions, we insist that as a Pacific nation ourselves, China respect our long-standing interests in the Indo-Pacific.
He also touched on the issue of America's support for its partners. Hegseth criticizes the fact that previous administrations seemed to overly focus on defending its partners, like Ukraine, instead of putting America first.
We will actually, for real, get our allies and partners to step up and do their part. We will no longer tolerate free riding. President Trump has shown the way with his historic leadership that yielded the commitments at NATO's Hague Summit. There, NATO committed to spend 5% of GDP on defense.
The U.S. recently changed its policy on support for Ukraine. Instead of donating weapons directly to Kiev, Washington now sells them to NATO, which then sends them to Ukraine. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Sunday is Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, the anniversary of what's known as the date which will live in infamy. On December 7, 1941, 2,400 service members and civilians lost their lives in the 2-hour air raid by Japanese forces on the U.S. naval base in Hawaii. The sneak attack shook America's confidence and pulled the country into World War II. Congress designated December 7th as National Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day in 1994. This Sunday marks 84 years since the attack on Pearl Harbor. In a statement honoring the anniversary, the White House wrote, "The exceptional courage and immeasurable sacrifices of the greatest generation secured our way of life and the blessings of freedom for future generations." From fuel efficiency changes, a regional peace deal, and new immigration action, the Trump administration has been active on multiple fronts. NTD's Dana Monahan has your White House Week in review.
The Trump administration lowered the fuel efficiency standards previously set during the Biden administration.
Today, my administration has taken historic action to lower costs for American consumers, protect American auto jobs, and make buying a car much more affordable.
Environmental groups oppose the move. President Trump praised the leaders of Congo and Rwanda as they signed a U.S.-backed peace agreement that also opens access to critical minerals for the U.S.
They've spent a lot of time killing each other, and now they're going to spend a lot of time hugging, holding hands, and taking advantage of the United States of America economically like every other country does.
I would like to thank his administration and also wish to thank the American people.
Treasury officials launched a probe into allegations that Minnesota taxpayer funds were diverted to a Somalia-based terror group.
These Somalians have taken billions of dollars out of our country.
And the White House alleged that dozens of individuals in Minnesota, largely of Somalian descent, looted taxpayers out of over $1 billion that was intended for child food assistance.
In fact, those organizations' leaders spent the money on houses, luxury cars, and real estate in Turkey and Kenya.
Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry said the city's law enforcement won't cooperate with ICE agents on any immigration enforcement actions.
What you see is a visual representation of we have your back, and when you come for one of us, you come for all of us.
And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said on Thursday that the administration plans to expand the number of countries covered by its travel ban to more than 30, speaking on Fox News.
If they don't have a stable government there, if they don't have a country that can sustain itself and tell us who those individuals are and help us vet them, why should we allow people from that country to come here to the United States?
The United States announced this week it will restrict visas for Nigerians and their family members involved in mass killings and violence against Christians.
I would like to thank President Trump for prioritizing this issue and for his leadership on the global stage in calling for urgent action to defend Christians in Nigeria.
Federal authorities launched a new immigration enforcement operation this week in New Orleans.
You're under arrest. You're illegally present in the United States. You understand that?
President Trump said a meeting between two U.S. envoys with Russian President Vladimir Putin was reasonably good.
What comes out of that meeting, I can't tell you, because it does take two to tango.
President Trump and the First Lady also presided over the national Christmas tree lighting ceremony.
During this holy season, Christians everywhere rejoice at the miracle in Bethlehem more than 2,000 years ago.
And the Trump administration is tightening screening procedures for H-1B visas used for highly skilled foreign workers. The State Department says candidates linked to any form of censorship of free speech could be denied under the new guidelines. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
A busy week on Capitol Hill as lawmakers welcomed a new congressman, unveiled their healthcare plans, and were briefed by top military commanders on actions against alleged narco-terrorists. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has the details.
The House of Representatives has a new member after the special election this Tuesday in Tennessee. Speaker of the House Mike Johnson swore in Congressman Matt Van Epps after winning the special election for Tennessee's 7th district.
I come to this distinguished body as a Christian, a husband and a father, and an Army Special Operations helicopter pilot with 9 combat tours, who has seen firsthand what makes this nation exceptional.
And the Senate and House Armed Services Committee members were briefed by the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, and Special Operations Commander Admiral Bradley on the September 2nd strikes on narco-terrorists in the Caribbean.
Admiral Bradley and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff did the right thing. Admiral Bradley defended the decisions taken, and Admiral Bradley has a storied career, and he has my respect, and he should have the respect of all of us. But what I saw in that room was one of the most troubling things I've seen in my time in public service. That video shows, if you don't have the broader context, an attack on shipwrecked sailors.
These are narco-terrorists who are trafficking drugs that are destined for the United States to kill thousands of Arkansans and millions of Americans. The first strike, the second strike, and the third and the fourth strike on September 2nd were entirely lawful and needful.
Senate Democratic leadership unveiled their proposal to address the expiring ACA healthcare tax credits.
Today I'm announcing that Senate Democrats will introduce legislation for a 3-year clean extension of the current ACA tax credits.
Democratic leadership is demanding a 3-year clean extension of the COVID-era subsidies, while a bipartisan group of lawmakers in the House of Representatives is proposing a 2-year extension with reforms to the subsidies.
For us, this is all about working together to find common ground for the American people and to make life more affordable for them. The framework includes an extension of health insurance premium savings for American families with targeted modifications to help ensure families can still get the help they need.
What you see before you are a bipartisan group of congressmen and women who have come together to find a solution to a problem that all Americans care about, health care. We did what we said we would do after the 43-day government shutdown. We came together to discuss healthcare reform and the looming expiration of ACA enhanced premium tax credits.
The reforms in the bipartisan-led proposal are yet to be determined, but are stipulated to be set into paper before July 1st of 2026. Both the Senate Democratic leadership proposal and the House bipartisan proposal will receive a vote before the end of December. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
In a joint press conference today, Israel's prime minister and Germany's chancellor reaffirmed their security partnership. Meanwhile, residents in Bethlehem attended a Christmas tree lighting ceremony for the first time since the Israel-Hamas war began. NTD's Jason Perry has the update.
Germany's Chancellor Friedrich Merz visited officials in the Middle East this weekend, and his first stop was in Jordan on Saturday, where he commented on the Israel-Hamas war, saying the Gaza Strip must never again pose a threat to Israel. Afterward, Merz visited officials in Israel, and he said this at the Holocaust Memorial.
I would like to pay tribute to the 6 million men, women, and children from all over Europe who were murdered by Germans because they were Jewish. Germany must stand up for the existence and security of Israel.
And 80 years after the Holocaust, both countries now help protect each other through military cooperation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said this about anti-Israel propaganda in the media.
We may not be able to control that, but we have changed Jewish history in the sense that those who vilify us can no longer annihilate us. Because when they come to do that, as they did on October 7th, we roll them back.
Netanyahu said he was set to meet with President Trump later this month to discuss Phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan, which includes the disarmament of Hamas. And while the ceasefire continues to hold, residents gathered in the central Gaza Strip to ride dirt bikes, something they said they haven't been able to do since the beginning of the war over 2 years ago.
At first, there were between 5 and 7 or 8 young men, and now, as you can see, there are many more people here. They are all spectators and fans of this sport.
And in the city of Bethlehem, hundreds of people attended a Christmas tree lighting ceremony. The event took place in front of the Church of the Nativity, which is built on the site where many believe Jesus was born.
We hope it will be a step toward peace, a step of love among all peoples, with nothing separating us from this beautiful feeling.
This was the first time the yearly event was held since the war started between Israel and Hamas. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Coming up, the White House has unveiled its new national security strategy. Dr. Keith Naughton joins us to unpack what the document means for China, Taiwan, and Europe. And we all have our little daily routines and preferences, but when do they cross into OCD territory? A clinical psychologist breaks down the line between quirks and a true anxiety disorder when we return.
I'm excited to announce that we're having our biggest 3-in-1 sale ever with a limited edition product, a back in stock special, and a closeout deal you won't find anywhere else. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get our MyPillow bed sheets, only $29.88. Any color, any style, any size, even kings, regular $119.98, only $29.88. Once they're gone for good. How about our My Towels? They're finally back in stock, but not for long. Get a 6-piece My Towel set, regular $69.98, now only $39.98. And for the first time and the only time ever, get our limited edition premium My Pillows. They're made with Giza cotton and designer gusset. Queen $17.98, Kings only $19.98. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to get the best offers ever. Quantities are extremely limited, so order now.
With Select Specs £6 specs, you can get 10 pairs of prescription glasses for just £60. That includes frames, prescription lenses, and delivery free to your door. And what makes this really special is each pair can have a different prescription. So it's glasses for everyone. SelectSpecs.com/£6. 10 frames, all with prescription lenses and anti-scratch coating for just £60. You don't get that on the high street. Right now you can save an extra 5% with offer code CG5OFF.
There's a whirlwind of emotion and activity going on in this painting. And there's chaos all around and threat from below. The wolves surrounding her, and they're anything but unmoved. They're moving all the time, and we sense that. But this little girl.
Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Japan is calling Australia to stay vigilant over China's growing military aggression as its impacts on Japan and Taiwan continue to rise. Japan's defense minister sat down with his Australian counterpart earlier today in Tokyo. NTD's Flora Hua has more.
In the face of increasing threats from Beijing, two U.S. allies, Japan and Australia, are now vowing to work together to uphold peace in the region.
We do not want to see any change to the status quo across the Taiwan Straits. In general terms, Minister Koizumi and I spoke about the way in which Australia and Japan can work together to assert the rules-based order and provide for the peace and stability of the Indo-Pacific.
Yesterday, Tokyo lodged a strong protest with Beijing, accusing a Chinese fighter jet of radar-locking aircraft belonging to Japan's self-defense force on 2 occasions.
Yesterday, there were 2 incidents in which Chinese military aircraft directed their radars at Japan's Self-Defense Force aircraft. Such actions are dangerous and go beyond what is necessary for the safe operation of aircraft. We lodged a strong protest with the Chinese side and firmly demanded that such incidents not be repeated.
Japanese defense officials quoted by the country's news agency said the Chinese carrier called Liaoning was conducting aircraft exercises which violated Japan's airspace. And when Japan sent fighter jets to remind the Chinese aircraft to leave, the Chinese aircraft locked its radars on the Japanese planes. Fighter jet radars can be used for surge or missile attacks. This is reportedly the first instance of a radar lock between Chinese and Japanese warplanes. The Chinese Defense Ministry responded hours after Tokyo's initial protest. China refused to acknowledge any wrongdoing. A Beijing spokesperson accused Japan of testing the waters of militarism and disrupting its defense trainings. The incidents took place over high seas southeast of Japan's Okinawa, where about 3/4 of U.S. military facilities in the country are located. Flora Hua, NTD News.
The White House released its highly anticipated new national security strategy, from prioritizing the Western Hemisphere to emphasizing deterrence over Taiwan and a warning to Europe. The strategy is encouraging some while disquieting others. Joining us to unpack it all is Dr. Keith Naughton, co-founder and principal at Silent Majority Strategies. Keith, thank you so much for joining us. Now, some are calling this national security strategy a radical departure, including from the one during Trump's first term. How are you reading this document? What changes stand out to you the most?
Well, I think it's a long overdue rewriting of America's formal strategy. Our main interests are in the Western Hemisphere, and we do have significant interests in Asia. China and the CCP are the most significant threat to American economic security. So I think that is the correct pivot to do. I think one of the reasons for the aggressive attitude towards Europe is that the United States has been very soft on Europe for 50 years. They've been really freeloading off of American defense. They haven't had to make any difficult decisions. They've engaged in appeasement towards China, Russia, and Iran. And when you do that long enough, eventually reach a breaking point. And I think the Europeans should treat this as a wake-up call to unite and be much stronger in defense of their own interests and to be better allies. They haven't been good allies for the last 20 years.
And digging in here, this time China doesn't top the list. Instead, the report lays out the Western Hemisphere, as you mentioned. Previously, it did that as well in 1987, 1990, and 2006. Expanding on your earlier point, what do you make of this emphasis on the Western Hemisphere this time?
Well, I think it's intelligent because it feeds into domestic politics. And in the end, American presidents are going to be judged on what happens in this country much more than what happens in other nations. And there's significant problems in the Western Hemisphere. We've got a lot of drug trafficking, an enormous amount of this illegal activity, a lot of smuggling. These transnational gangs are often abetted by government officials, like in Venezuela and local officials in Mexico. That's causing direct harm to this country. It's causing thousands of drug deaths, tens of thousands of drug deaths every year. That's something that should be addressed very robustly and very aggressively. I think that the president is also engaged in negotiation with China over trade. So I think it's smart right now to not raise up the rhetoric when we're talking about China right now. If he can get through these negotiations, then I think that would be a positive thing.
When it comes to China, the report says President Trump single-handedly reversed more than 3 decades of mistaken American assumptions about China, namely that by opening our markets to China, we would facilitate China's entry into the so-called rules-based international order. This did not happen. China got rich and powerful and used its wealth and power to its considerable advantage. As for solutions, the document calls for American dominance in key technologies and defense equipment, a strong capital market, and coordination with allies with similar values. How are you reading this? What does this mean for U.S.-China relations going forward?
Well, I don't think I would have gone back 30 years, maybe 20 years. I think that the permanent normal trade relations were an enormous mistake. A country the size of China with its population was never going to simply live by Western rules. It's a society and a civilization that's been around for millennia, depending on who does the accounting. But it's got a proud culture. So this idea in the West that everyone in China was just going to be like the West, that was always a fantasy. That was very arrogant. It was going to develop on its own terms. Unfortunately, the country's overlaid by the CCP, which has corrupted the nation and has been very aggressive. So it's a bit of a toxic mix. So we should have been much more cautious for the past 20, 25 years. And I think it is a long overdue correction. And it was Trump who made the correction in his first term. And Biden didn't move off of that. He continued the tariffs against China, continued a more aggressive posture, not enough, but at least somewhat. So I think that's the correct move. But it would be beneficial to build at least some type of relationship that maintains sort of a peaceful coexistence, because a shooting war, a hot war over Taiwan, over trade, would be very damaging to both countries. But as part of that process, the United States needs to become more independent economically and on technology.
I want to get to Taiwan, but digging into one of your earlier points, some are pointing out the softer language, if you will, on China, for instance, not calling out the regime's authoritarianism. Now, Politico reported before the strategy came out that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was pushing for more done on the language when it comes to China, citing the sensitivity over ongoing trade negotiations with Beijing. What are your thoughts on that? Is there a departure from previous reports when it comes to China or the language around it?
I'm not too upset about softening language. I mean, we spend too much time on parsing words and language and trying to satisfy different interest groups with the right kind of phrasing. What matters is really action and policy. So as long as the administration is pursuing action and policy that promotes economic independence, that allows Taiwan to defend itself and is very robust in that defense of Taiwan, I'm not too concerned about the language. We know that China has a problem. It is overly authoritarian. It has abused its minorities. It has corrupted its own very proud culture. but there's really not that much we can do about that. That's best left to NGOs and private citizens and so forth. The fact is the United States has certain interests it has to deal with China on, and going down this path about trying to dictate their internal policy is very difficult for the government to do. It should be left to independent journalists and NGOs.
And militarily, the document calls for ongoing deterrence in the Indo-Pacific to prevent war, highlighting the U.S. and allies' capacity to deter any attempt to seize Taiwan. Given that, how do you see Beijing responding to this document?
Well, it's very curious. Their public response under Xi Jinping has been sort of very prickly. Anytime there's the slightest whiff of criticism, they really go on the attack. I mean, the Global Times, I'm not sure there are people actually writing it. I think they just have some sort of computer program that just attacks anyone who criticizes China. I think that the reality is if we give enough defense to Taiwan, if we provide enough weaponry, if we have a strong defense posture with South Korea and Japan and Australia, that will result in China pushing, moving back or being reticent to be aggressive. I would like to see the administration be more firm with the Philippines, because right now China is engaged in some horribly abusive actions against the Philippines and some of the sovereign Philippine territory in the Scarborough Shoals. So I think the administration should be more aggressive on that side, but I think it's good that they reaffirm the defense of Taiwan.
And Keith, lastly, as for Europe, the strategy lays out what it calls Europe's civilizational erasure due to loss of national identities from immigration and cratering birth rates, saying this is resulting in military and economic stagnation in Europe. How big of a change is this regarding Europe?
Well, I think there's some conservative critics that got in the room and decided to insert some of their philosophy into the document. I agree with those opinions. That is a significant problem for Europe. What I would have preferred is something more critical about their lack of unity and their lack of resoluteness in their own defense. I'll give you a quick example. The Europeans froze $300 billion of Russian assets on an attack that they considered an existential threat to the continent. They've been accused credibly of sabotage around Europe, sending drones onto airfields, espionage, et cetera, et cetera. And just recently, they couldn't agree to cash in that money to pay for the damage that the Russians have caused. And they continue to buy their energy, by the way. That's crazy. They're worried about the legal ramifications. I mean, this is not a continent that's serious about its own defense. That's what I would have focused on if I was writing this document. I think that's been a point that's been made elsewhere. But Europe has very little room to criticize the United States when it comes to defense. They have created their own insecurity, and they need to be serious about addressing it.
Dr. Keith Naughton, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up, we all have our little daily routines and preferences, but when do they cross into OCD territory? A clinical psychologist breaks down the line between quirks and a true anxiety disorder. And with President Trump rolling back Biden-era fuel efficiency standards, what does this mean for the market? Car expert Lauren Fix joins us to unpack what this means for the car industry and if cars will become cheaper. Coming up.
We said we'd never give in to a meltdown.
Okay.
And we'd never babysit with a screen. We said we'd never let the toys take over.
Mariella!
Never leave the house looking, well, and never let them out of our sight. Skylar, come here. Cars get hot fast, and kids can be at risk. Before you leave the car, Always stop, look, lock.
We come from a long line of farmers, and there's a sense of pride with being part of these multi-generational businesses. But there's also a significant amount of pressure. My senior year of high school, my dad made the decision that this world no longer needed him in it. I don't know if he was overwhelmed by the bills and checks that weren't going to be coming in because of the strawberries dying off, but it breaks my heart that my dad made a permanent decision for a temporary issue. Don't feel like you have to go through it alone.
Farmers have to take care of their physical and their mental health, because what's a farm without a farmer?
In the mornings, that's my time. Watching the sun come up, I can have a cup of coffee and exercise if I want to. It helps me start the day with a sense of gratitude.
Yay!
Every day is a new opportunity. Don't forget to check in on yourself. Love your mind.
Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Right now, President Trump has just arrived at the Kennedy Center Honors. He's taking questions from the media. Let's tune in.
Totally different audience, but when you add them up, they're 100% of our country and a big percentage of the world. So we have great honorees. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to have a good time tonight.
Mr. President, we know that you like the arts. Could you imagine, Mr. President, now we know that you've hosted before, The Apprentice, for many years. Could you imagine next year maybe you're not hosting, but maybe you receiving a Kennedy Center Honor?
That's an interesting one. I haven't thought of that. Yeah, I think I'm going to nominate myself for next year.
Mr. President, wow. Every day you have such a big job being the president. Why was it important for you to actually host the show tonight, and how much time did you spend getting ready for it?
Well, it wasn't important for me, other than if I get much higher ratings, if it's a more successful show, then I'm contributing. I get nothing. I don't make money with it. I don't do anything. It's a little bit of work, not a lot of work. I look forward to doing it, but the network said, would it be possible to get the president to host? And I love the concept of no president has ever hosted the Kennedy Center honorees. And it's very important that this building be great, and that this building remain really, I saved the building. We raised a lot of money tonight, tremendous record numbers of dollars, a lot of money. And we've raised over $100 million over the last very short period of time. That's a lot of money. And that money goes into the rejuvenation and the rebuilding of the building. And a lot of it's already taken place. A lot of the things that you don't see have already taken place.
Mr. President, and you're saving the building. When will locals who come to the Kennedy Center, who live here, when will we start to see all of the changes? And do you have a timeline for when this will all be wrapped up?
Over the next 4 or 5 months, we're going to have it very well set. You see the outside, the columns, they're beautiful. They had a fake gold color, and now they're beautiful, gleaming white. And everyone's talking about that. It sounds like not much of a change. It's a massive change. The white against the white marble. The marble is being rejuvenated. They're great pieces of marble, but they've been let go and they've been tired. And I always say you could take a 100th of an inch off of a piece of marble and you have a brand new piece of marble, but nobody does that. It's not an easy process. But if you look on the outside of the building, people see already a very big difference.
Is the First Lady involved in the style and the change that's happening here?
Yeah, she's got great taste. I'll ask her opinion. She liked the white as opposed to the fake gold. But they had the fake gold. The one thing about gold, you can never imitate real gold. They've tried to do it for years. Gold paint. Gold paint never works.
Mr. President,
you got to go for the real 24-karat gold. Yes.
Yes, sir. Is there another president other than yourself who you think would have done a good job hosting the Kennedy Center Honors?
Hosting, yes. Building, no.
Mr. President,
you have a couple that would have done. Politicians.
Mr.
They're very good on their feet, most of them.
Could you name one?
I would say the last one wouldn't have done too well hosting. But we've had some great politicians. Excuse me, John F. Kennedy would have done a very good job hosting. But building, no. I will build better than anybody. I build better than anybody. Thank you.
Mr. President, $23 million was made tonight, nearly doubling. $23 million was made tonight, nearly doubling last year.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Maybe we had something to do with it. I don't know. We doubled up last year. It's really much more than that because we've done over 100, not including tonight. We've done over $100 million already. And those are numbers that the Kennedy Center has never seen before. It's doing really well. Thank you for that question.
How is this renovation and the big, beautiful ballroom for the White House, how is this tied into...
You've done so much for American greatness. Talk to the next generation about how important the values are that you're celebrating tonight are to American greatness. Things like self-discipline, creativity, talent, those things.
Well, the young generation, I think, is going to grow up strong. We have a very different country than we had a year ago. A year ago, we had a country that was in big trouble. Now we have a country that's the talk of the world, and everybody's respecting us again, and young people are respecting us again, too. I won the young vote. The Republicans never win the young vote. I won it easily. And I want to thank Charlie, and I want to thank TikTok, and there are a lot of reasons for it. But there's never been a Republican who won the young vote, and I won the very young vote. So that's a good sign.
Mr. President, why did you select Kiss, Mr. President? Why did you select Kiss for the honor this evening? Do you have a favorite Kiss song?
Well, I like them as people. I've listened to their music over the years. They are characters, too. They really are. I don't know if you saw last night the speeches. They were great. They really made some great speeches last night. And they're very popular. A lot of people write in and ask us to select. So, think of it. Sylvester Stallone was not picked for any of this stuff. He's one of the greatest movie stars of all time, based on revenue, based on, Rocky and Rambo and the numbers. No, I doubt. Maybe there's a couple of stars that have done something equal, but really there's nothing like it. So we're going to have a very exciting night. But Kiss is terrific.
Mr. President, two questions. What are you looking forward to most about hosting tonight? And number two, Secretary Duffy says you are the master of the playlist out on the Rose Garden Club. What's your favorite song to listen to on the Rose Garden Club?
Well, I have so many different songs. And look, Lee Greenwood really hit big with that. It was from day one. We put it on the first rally, and we never took it off, and he's great. But I have a lot of favorites, and I can tell you that we both love Elton John, special man, special guy, and he's really talented. We like a lot of different. I like a lot of different songs, a lot of different types of music. I have a good playlist. Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. President, what would you like to see for America?
And that was President Trump just now speaking at the Kennedy Center Awards. Next, President Trump announced a reversal of federal fuel standards on Wednesday, reversing Biden-era regulations. The so-called corporate average fuel economy, or CAF standards, were first enacted in 1975. These government regulations aim to lower emissions for the average fuel efficiency of a vehicle fleet. The White House saying this reset will save $109 billion in total for American families. Joining us to unpack all of this and more is Lauren Fix, automotive expert at Car Coach Reports. And we will be going back to the interview. We're just having some technical difficulties. But as 2026 approaches, the National Park Service is making changes to its free admission calendar. According to the agency's website, Martin Luther King Jr. Day as well as Juneteenth are no longer listed as free admission days. Several days were added, including September 17th, which is Constitution Day, and June 14th, which is Flag Day. Other free admission days next year include President's Day, Memorial Day, Independence Day weekend, the Park Service's 110th birthday, Theodore Roosevelt's birthday, and Veterans Day. The free admissions will only apply to U.S. citizens and residents. Color coding your wardrobe, double checking the locks, washing your hands a few extra times. These are habits many of us have. But when do ordinary routines cross the line into obsessive compulsive disorder? In this episode of Vital Signs, clinical psychologist Dr. Jessica Russo joins host Brendan Fallon to explain what separates quirks from a true anxiety disorder and the underlying causes that drive compulsive behavior.
You know, that guy disinfects his computer keyboard every day. He is so OCD. Why is this term OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, so embedded in our everyday speech? Why does this dysfunction turn up so much in our movies and TV shows? Is it because so many people can relate to these traits? But where lies the dividing line between someone who's a bit over-preoccupied with cleanliness or order or routine and someone who might be diagnosed OCD? Legendary aviator Howard Hughes' painstaking attention to detail distinguished his films and engineering before he sunk into deep debilitation. Can OCD traits give people a competitive edge on certain fronts? Joining us to probe these and other matters of OCD today is Dr. Jessica Russo. She's a clinical psychologist with decades of experience helping people manage and resolve addiction, anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues. Today, she illuminates the brain mechanics of OCD and through real-world examples illuminates underlying causes of this condition and how she's guided people in their recovery. Welcome to Vital Signs, where we learn how to get healthy from all angles, from the biochemical and nutritional to the things we do that nourish our minds and our souls. I'm Brendan Fallon. Dr. Russo, wonderful to have you join us on Vital Signs again, and fantastic to get your perspective on this topic, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, that has really pervaded our mainstream, our pop culture, from TV shows to cinema, and has become part of our everyday language. We throw this term around if someone's a little bit meticulous, if they like to be particularly ordered, or they've got a thing for hygiene or cleanliness, we tend to call them OCD. But I wonder, where does the line lie between someone's quirky behavior and someone who has a full-blown anxiety disorder?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's true, so many people are talking about themselves this way. There's two major distinctions here. One is that these obsessions are really distressing for the person. And that's often not true with people who just have obsessive thoughts. And the other thing is these obsessions are often accompanied by compulsions. And we can see in the brain that there's a real difference between somebody who has OCD and somebody who doesn't. So there are four major regions of the brain that are overactive in OCD. So you have the orbital frontal cortex, which is one, and this is in charge of decision-making and risk assessment. So if you are needing to use the bathroom and there's only a public bathroom, you're going to assess that as very dangerous, where someone else might think, okay, this is just a low level of risk. There's contamination, but that's fine. I'll just wash my hands. I won't touch anything. No problem. That may not be the case for somebody with an OCD brain because of this overactivation. And then there's the anterior cingulate cortex, which works alongside this other section. That first region I mentioned, that's right behind the eyes. This is one that's just a little bit deeper in the brain, and this is involved in error detection and emotional regulation. So something being wrong in the environment, or you've done something wrong. That's very common with OCD. There's a real focus on making a mistake. I've made a mistake. It's a horrible mistake, catastrophizing. And that can really be unbearable. And, this is where the compulsions come in.
This could be like a moral mistake, or it could just be like a messing up in a test or something like that. It's not specific to any particular kind of error.
Not normally, but there definitely is a theme of not wanting to hurt other people and fearing that you are. So it often shows up that way. So the idea being, I've done something to really hurt someone. I've disappointed someone. I've compromised someone. There's a lot of shame that we see in OCD. So you've got that. And then you've got an area called the basal ganglia. That's deeper within the brain. And that focuses on habit formation, movement regulation, and again, very overactive. So this is where the repetition comes in. People with OCD, they may engage in a compulsion, but they can't necessarily stop that easily because this signal to stop is just not activating. They think, okay, I haven't done enough. I have to keep doing it. Maybe they don't even know why they have to keep doing it, but they're compelled to keep doing it. And then finally, there's the thalamus. The basal ganglia surrounds the thalamus, and the thalamus is in charge of receiving information, relaying information, and again, very overactive. So you have this circuit that normally, in a normal brain, you recognize, okay, I need to do a task. You do the task like washing your hands after using the bathroom, and then you're done. And you can leave the bathroom. But somebody who doesn't have that stop signal, they're not going to be able to stop. They're just compelled to keep doing it. So that's a really big difference between somebody who just has some obsessions and someone who has OCD.
To see that full interview and others on how to optimize health, go to ept.ms/vital signs. Vital Signs offers general health information not intended as medical diagnosis or advice. Please consult your doctor before undertaking a new health regimen.
And joining us now on the Trump-Biden reversals is Lauren Fix, automotive expert at Car Coach Reports. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us. Now, President Trump saying that the Biden regulations caused the price of cars to soar more than 25%. Is that true? How much savings are we talking about here under the Trump reversal?
Yeah, the mandate for the electric vehicle tax credit and putting in the mandate for brands to produce a minimal amount of electric vehicles increase the cost of cars. To give you an idea, for example, Ford Motor Company was making the F-150 Lightning. It was costing them $44,000 of a loss on each vehicle. So you can't make that up in volume. The more vehicles they sold, that loss just compiled. Now, taking that away, they're no longer going to be making the F-150 Lightning, and almost every brand has switched to deciding they're not going to be all electric. There's a few that haven't made the transition yet, but they all will because they want to sell vehicles. And this is going to lower the price of vehicles. Also, because of the loss, what car brands did was something a little unique. Instead of offering all the same vehicles they always did, they removed all the entry-level vehicles, all those below $20,000 vehicles that had minimal options. Instead, the only vehicles they were selling were ones that were fully loaded top trim levels because they made more profit, and they were trying to offset the loss, and they also increased the price of vehicles. Now, with this reversal, we're going to lower the price of vehicles they should be offering, and this is what I've heard from the brands that I speak with, that they're going to offer more entry-level vehicles that maybe have less options, and they're all going to try and get below that $20,000 range. Right now, there's only a few vehicles that are below $25,000, but if you can start offering new cars that are below $20,000, I think that would be very helpful to people. And of course, offering small cars, which are called K cars, like it's spelled KEI, but if they start offering those small cars here, like the Kia PV5, which they do make in other countries, they start building them here in North America. That would be fantastic. They'd be meant for city use, obviously not meant for highway use because some of our highways are quite high speeds. But think of it something along the size of a Kona EV, a Fiat 500, or a little Mini Cooper. They could be slightly smaller by a foot, but they would make it so transportation is good for new drivers or people that have to run errands around town. And all of that will lower the cost of vehicles to consumers.
We did hear President Trump talking about the cute cars in Japan and trying to get that kind of technology here in the U.S. But speaking of Ford, CEO Jim Farley calling it a victory of common sense and affordability, adding, "We believe that people should be able to make a choice." Given that, what does this mean for the auto industry? What kind of changes can we expect to see here?
Okay, we're going to see lots of changes of more entry-level cars. We're also going to see a mix of what's available to you. It would be gasoline, hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and even diesel on the half-ton trucks. We did have all those options in the past. Under the Obama administration, they started squashing those options available. Then under Obama, he put heavier hands on what manufacturers were allowed to build. Anytime the government tells a company what to build, it's never good. We saw this happen in England, just to give you an idea. And as of today, there are some cars being built in England, but many of their car brands disappeared. We don't need that here because of how many people we employ. And so when you think about all, not just the car companies themselves, but all the sub companies from tires to components, and you realize how many jobs are hinged on the auto industry, they need to make a profit so that they can produce more products, better cars, safer cars, nicer options. And they literally, every car brand literally tried everything from removing AM radio, taking out Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which we're still fighting on this type of thing right now. But even something as silly, and this is silly, as charging for heated seats. BMW was one of the first ones to try that. That didn't go over very well. They took a lot of heat and they ended up reversing it. So car brands are going to now realize that consumers have the control. We've proven that by all the cars sitting on lots. And I think you're going to start seeing a lot more incentives, lower car prices coming in the future. It's not going to be tens of thousands of dollars, but you will see the prices start to drop because car makers need to make product that you want to buy and not product that the government tells you you should buy.
And Lauren, lastly, we saw under the Biden administration a focus on EVs, and now there's a pulling back from that. How should You know, car brands and manufacturers deal with this ping pong, if you will, as each administration comes in and seems to reverse course. Is there a set standard that lasts longer than one administration?
That's an excellent question. And what happened under the CRA, which is a Congressional Review Act, was signed on July 4th. President Trump signed the removal of the EPA's power, taking away all the teeth. And now with what he came through with the Freedom Means Affordable Cars Act, which is what he just announced this past week, this is huge. This literally takes away all of the powers of the government controlling what car manufacturers make. The corporate average fuel economy, known as CAFE standards, was over 50 miles to the gallon. It will now reverse back to the 2017 standard of 36.4 miles to the gallon. And at that time, nobody met that standard except for Honda because they don't make trucks. And so now that we start to look at these changes, what you're going to see is lower price cars. You're going to see cars that you want to buy at price points that you want to buy with options and features that you want. And the last little piece of this puzzle is going to happen when President Trump finally enacts removal of all of the auto pen signatures. That'll take the teeth away from California, because California currently, through their California Air Resources Board, is calling the shots for the entire country. And that's not constitutional. One state cannot call the rules for the other 49, and that's where it is right now. This is in the courts, and it's also part of the auto pen regulations. So we're going to see some big changes coming in the auto industry, and it's going to be good for consumers.
Big moves for sure. Lauren Fix, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
A fiery update from Hawaii's Big Island. The Mount Kilauea volcano has resumed its on and off eruptions. The eruptions have been captivating residents and visitors for nearly a year. The volcano is currently erupting again, sending fountains of lava 50 to 100 feet into the air and lighting up the night sky with a brilliant red glow. The eruption is currently contained within Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. At this time, no communities are at risk, although the event has attracted worldwide attention. The road to the Olympics is a long one, and starting this weekend, torchbearers across Italy are setting out to carry the Olympic flame. The Winter Olympics will kick off in just 2 months. Here's a look at what's happening along the way.
The Milan Cortina 2026 Winter Olympic flame has begun its journey, setting off from Rome on a relay across Italy.
It's a lot of emotion these last 2 days, going to Greece, getting the flame, bringing it to our president. It was fantastic. I think he gave an incredible speech yesterday. And today, finally seeing all our work taking form, and with the relay starting. It's a lot of emotion that gives us the right energy to go on for the next 60 days, because there's still a lot of work to do in Milano and Cortina and in the mountains, but it's good to see on a beautiful day like this that we start bringing the Olympic flame around it.
Olympic swimming champion Gregorio Paltrinieri and fellow summer athletes started off the relay on Saturday, exactly 2 months before the February 6th opening ceremony.
Yeah, no, it has been a big honor for me. I didn't expect that, but it's a pleasure to be part of the Olympic movement, even if it's Winter Olympics, but I always follow the Winter Olympics. It's a big pleasure to be here with the guys, with big athletes today, so I'm really excited and I can't wait.
Paltrinieri carried the sleek torch around the track of the statue-lined Stadio dei Marmi at the Foro Italico to begin a trek covering nearly 7,500 miles. The journey will wind its way through all 110 Italian provinces before reaching Milan's San Siro Stadium for the opening ceremony. Paltrinieri handed off to retired fencer Elisa Di Francisca, who won 2 golds at the 2012 London Games. Up next was Gianmarco Tamberi, the 2020 Olympic high jump champion.
It was amazing. It was amazing. I honestly, when they called me to do this thing today, I accepted it immediately because it's like the flame. This thing represents our sport, represents the Olympics, the values of the Olympics. So it was amazing. Be here in Rome for the home country Olympics. I'm very happy about it.
In one of the most iconic moments of the trek so far, the Olympic flame passed by the Colosseum in Rome on Saturday. The torch relay, which includes 60 city celebrations, will be in Naples for Christmas and in Bari for New Year's Eve. It will reach 2006 Olympics host Turin on January 11th. In all, there will be 10,001 torchbearers.
And that's all for today's news. For on-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.